Welcome, wandering souls and lost sailors, to the Ship of the Dead podcast.
Ahoy, mateys! Welcome aboard the Ship of the Dead. Today we be traveling somewhere different, a little darker than the Dark Caribbean. We'll be headed to Davy Jones's locker on board the ferry, or the Ship of the Dead, whatever you want to call it. I got me fine crew. I've got Quartermaster Tyler and Master of Marketing Zach. Welcome aboard, gentlemen.
Yeah, happy to be back there, Captain.
Good to be in.
I don't suppose we're going to talk in accent the whole podcast. It'd be
No, of course not. I just
but
have to start that way. We got to get the vibe going good here.
we got to make them feel like they're sailing into the locker with us.
I mean, Talk Like a Pirate Day is just around the corner / here.
Yeah, Talk Like a Pirate week. We'll talk about that later in the stream, but I'm very excited to have you gentlemen on board today. Zach, welcome to your first Ship of the Dead episode.
Thanks.
Welcome aboard the Limithron behemoth that is like the 3 or 4 of us. How's it been so far?
Delightful.
Now, don't
In
overstate
a word.
it, okay?
Yeah.
Well, let's cut right to it. We have a very large Kickstarter. Our second Kickstarter goes live not on Talk Like a Pirate Day. It's the beginning of Talk Like a Pirate Week, September 17th.
Tuesday.
We've been told by our Master of Marketing guru, Zach, that Tuesdays are much better for Kickstarter starts. So we've started 2 days earlier. Also, this gives us time as people to go run our events on Talk Like a Pirate Day. I have an event here. We're doing Ship of the Dead meetup in Denver. Tyler, you're doing Geeky Tea on Saturday?
Yeah, 4 sessions.
You want to plug where that is for our listeners?
Yeah, it's in Burbank, California. For anybody coming out, we've got the Captain's Cabin room. It's a full pirate room featured in the Harbor Master video. Geeky Tea is awesome and very supportive, so I'm stoked.
Nice. Zach, are you doing anything for Talk Like a Pirate Day? Talk Like a Pirate Week?
I am. On Talk Like a Pirate Day, I will be at Tabletop Kansas City for their Pirate Day festivities. I might be running a game, but I'll definitely be there hanging out at Tabletop KC.
My least favorite thing about Talk Like a Pirate Day is I have so much FOMO because there's so many things happening that I would want to be at that I can't obviously be at because you can only be one place. So,
Yeah.
Well, let's dive in. So this Kickstarter is really exciting because it's our first full hardcover expansion book, but we're also doing a starter set. We're doing a GM screen. We're doing a bunch of cool things. So we're going to try to deep dive with less of a focus on advertising and more of a focus on what does this mean for actual GMs, what kind of content is in there. We are currently live in Discord and we're going to be taking questions. So if you have questions, use the live podcast recording channel to throw them in. Tyler will try to work them in the conversation, and then we'll probably do a Q&A at the end if there's interest. So I guess without further ado, let's go down among the dead, mateys. Okay, so Down Among the Dead. What is this? This is right now it's 128 pages. There's a stretch goal in there that I want to do that I think might push it. We'll see. It's basically 3 full-length adventures that all could be run as one-shots, but I think in order to cover all the content in all 3, you're probably talking minimum 2 sessions each. 3 core adventures. There's a bunch of new player options. There's a page on D20 motivation for the apocalypse.
Nice.
There's a page on 20 new Pirate Borg house rules. There's a lot of which we've sourced from the community. There's at least 1 new player class. There's a stretch goal for a second player class, and then D66. We're calling them seafarer skills, but it's basically classless options that you can take when you level up.
Do you want to give them a little tease about the one class that's for sure going in there?
We have a new class called the Lost. Lost Soul is actually a pretty good name for it. A Lost Soul is basically someone who has been to Davy Jones's locker and returned. And I think the idea is it's going to be a full class that you could start from level 1 with class features, but also the kind of thing, kind of like Haunted Soul, where you could quote multi-class into it.
Yeah, move
and
there.
It's going to have really weird, kind of undead ethereal abilities that kind of tie into the weird extra dimensional nature of Davy Jones's locker. We're going to get to the locker adventure, but one of the things in Lost to the Locker is there's a table, a D20 table that's a time table that it gets used all the time. Whenever you travel between locations, or if you attend a ball, you roll on this D20 table, and if you roll a 19, it's 19 heartbeats later. If you roll a 15, it's 15 seconds. But if you roll a 2, it's 2 eons later. So there's a lot of really cool cool, weird time things in this adventure. So like one of my ideas for this Lost Soul class is that they have some time manipulation abilities, like re-rolling a roll, or that, what's the divination?
Precedence or precognition, where you get to roll 2d20.
From 5e?
Yeah, from 5. You roll at the beginning of the day, and then you can save that roll and use it anytime you want.
Yeah, we're going to steal that. I love the idea that like maybe that one is called like, I've been here before, where they're like, no, wait, I've seen this moment. And where you can be like, nope, that's not the D20 roll. It's this one now.
That gets me so excited. Like time manipulation is by far my favorite power of all time.
Yeah. So we're excited about that one. The first stretch goal class is a deep one class. I know you can kind of play an aquatic mutant already in the core book, but like, especially with what's coming in this adventure, I really want deep ones to be more of an option. So basically the 6 core, what do you call those, starting abilities are going to be based on what kind of deep one heritage you have. And that will basically equate to like how deep in the ocean your deep ones are from, so it'll go everywhere from like, I forget the names, but they're all like the region names of the ocean.
Yeah.
And like, so the bottom one is like abyssal, and like, it's going to be really cool. So like, if you're from the very deep, it's going to be hard to see in the daylight, but you'll basically have dark vision, which is not really a thing in Pirate Borg. And then what's up with the other one? Can you remember what it's called?
I can. It's called Skills for the Seasoned Sea Rover.
Yes, Skills for the Seasoned Sea Rover. Now, I know it's a little confusing to use the word skills in Pirate Borg, but we're doing it because it makes sense for this. They are going to be like, rather than taking your Rapscallion level up ability, or if you're playing one of those ones that doesn't have as many, you'll be able to roll or take from this list. And there's going to be a lot of like really focused skills. So like maybe one will make you better at, being a helmsman and turning the ship, or a better gunner, or a better navigator. All these like kind of little bumps that might be a little bit focused, but will be very powerful
when they come into play.
Yeah,
that's exactly awesome.
So that's exciting. Okay, so let's talk about the first adventure, Lost in the Locker. No, it's Lost to the Locker. Why do I keep messing it up?
You wrote it wrong.
I've written it wrong too many times that now it's like stuck in my mind.
LTTL, baby. Lost to the Locker.
Lost to the Locker. Yes, that's correct. Okay, so Lost to the Locker. This is an idea I got after getting, I think it's Morkborg Ferratory. Graves Left Wanting by Carl Druid it's kind of like a post-TPK. It's either an intro or post-TPK adventure where you basically end up in a grave, and then you crawl out of the grave and you're in a graveyard like, they thought you were dead, but you survived. And I'm like, I love this idea. And it's like really, really well written, and it's really, really well laid out by Johan. So it's like really easy to use at the table. And I was like, man, this would be perfect for this. I've always had this idea of doing like a Davy Jones's Locker kind of adventure. And I actually ran a Halloween. It was a 4-shot before I wrote Pirate Borg, where everybody played as like undead types. And they were in this place called Port Oblivion, which is basically like, pirate ghost city. So yeah, we wrote this adventure. I wrote this adventure you've got all these weird little islands that are connected when like things don't make sense. And then you've got like the 13-skulled Charon rowing around on his boat. I don't know. You guys have read it. What do you think?
I think it's awesome. When I read it, finally got my hands on it a way back, I was like, this is one of the coolest adventures I've ever read. Oh,
you're one of the only people that has run it, actually.
Yeah. I ran it at Origins for close of family and friends, and it was a blast. Just fun and serious, and also super silly stuff in an undead world, and trying to figure out what the rules are and the mechanics. They're all different. It was very fun session. People like, once they got a little bit more freedom with like, I can do this instead of that. Like, that's really fun. And it was a very unique experience. I think it's always going to be like, remember that time we went to the locker? That's how I think people are going to
do you think like, are we going spoiler free or not? Are we deep diving? What do you think?
I think a player should not feel robbed if they listen to this.
Well, that means there's a lot we can't talk about, but that's okay. Maybe we'll keep the episode a little shorter. Like, there's definitely some things in the locker. A couple like core rules of Pirate Borg are broken, which you don't know until you find out. And I think that is always goes over really well at the table. They're like, wait, what? That's pretty exciting.
I got a question for you. Is it underwater, or where is the locker? Where does it take place?
We'll give you like what you would see in a trailer if it was a movie, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a trailer.
Yeah, there is a trailer, but like, you awaken in the shallows. You run this thing like post TPK, or you could do it like after a big storm, or like after the Kraken attacks the ship. Anything where they like might end up in the water, you can run this adventure. They don't have to be actually dead for you to run it. But you wake up like chained to a rock underwater and you're drowning. Like at the start of the adventure, I always use and I say it in the adventure, kind of inspired by Shadow Dark, like use a real timer. I always you can even see on the live stream, I tell my watch, like start a timer for 5 minutes, because there's a lot of real time triggers where you're like, you guys have 5 minutes to solve this puzzle before something bad happens, you know?
That live stream that you just mentioned is the Necronomicon live stream from a few weeks ago, and you can check it out on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, Necronomicon Live 2024. I don't know, that's really fun. But then after you get past that first location, I guess it's not technically under the water. You're no longer drowning.
You're underwater there, and then you swim to the surface, and now you're like, there's islands, and you're
basically in like a mist shrouded archipelago. You don't know where you are.
Yeah.
And then there's one of the cool things about it too is like there is a map in the book, but it does say in the book printed on the map, like this map is not accurate. And my design intent was twofold. You can use the map accurately for like a one shot or for a group that doesn't really like exploring, but there are also rules for like rolling up your own version of the locker, and then you can push that mechanic as far as you want. Like you could have it be like the first time they go down this bridge, it leads to that location, location B, and then it always leads to location B. Or you could change it every time. Like I kind of say in the adventure, like you really need to feel out with your players what's fun. If they're having fun like drawing it and like they got all the red thread out and they're tracing things back, like you got to run with that, I think. But also some people don't like that, so you could just use the map as written.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really cool. It's really well laid out. And in the Kickstarter, there are a map version of that.
Yeah. So the thing about the Lost to the Locker is like there is a map that like I said, you use more as like a key or like a checklist of places to go. But when I was making it, I was very cognizant of like, I want each location to have a 2-page art spread with the information underneath it, so that A, it kind of feels like you're playing at like a Darkest Dungeon location, but B, we can also use those for scenes in VTT, especially like an alchemy RPG, where you can load up rather than saying like, oh, you're at, this shipwrecked town and there's like these like ghostly lost souls everywhere. You can just actually load the picture up in the background and your players can like immediately get the feel of what it's like to be there. So there are like, I don't know, I think there are 10 locations,
something like that,
and they all have like double page wide art, like letterbox art. So that's really cool. And then like Tyler was trying to say in the Kickstarter, we're going to have an asset pack that comes with those as like big postcards. So you can like kind of pass them out at the table or like hold them up and show your players without having to like show that page in the book, And then
we'll get to this, but there'll be a large scale map for the other two adventures as well, double-sided.
Oh yeah, I guess should we move on to the other two?
The only thing I'd say other than that about this is one of the things I like about this adventure in particular is that in the core book, there's like these little corners of Pirate Board that if you're just playing like standard games or some of the adventure that we've already had, like you don't get to explore those corners of ideas very quickly or very often, right? And what I like about this is that it's a hyper-focused adventure that focuses on the dead and ghosts and all that. And so now this is an opportunity for that corner of the core book experience that maybe you haven't gotten to pull in a ghost ship or whatever. Now you're going to be saturated with it for an adventure and kind of feel like you got to utilize that aspect of the setting that we've had out for a while now. And we're going to follow up with that in other products, but like really diving deep into a corner that maybe hasn't been dove deep into yet is cool.
Yeah. And all the published stuff that we have out is not anything really like this adventure, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So what's the second adventure in the book, Luke?
The second one is called Venom in the Veins, which is actually the one I wrote first. Venom in the Veins. This is kind of a deep dive, but I'm obsessed with this map artist his name is Jack Badashki. He goes by Stinky Goblin Maps on Instagram. And he is the guy who does all of the maps for Beetle and Grimm's deluxe box sets. And he did that like full Curse of Strahd map. And I love this guy's style. He's so good.
It's very good.
Yeah. It's like he does all his work for his maps, like hand drawn, black and white, like old school, good line work with hatching. And then he loads them in Photoshop and colors them. And I just like looking at his work, I was like, man, I really like want to draw. I wanted to get him to draw, but then I just decided to do it myself, like a snake temple, just like the classic, what you think of when you think of a full blown Indiana Jones snake temple. I wanted to make that. I wanted to draw. So I did. It's on the Patreon, but it's like this big snake temple map. And I drew it knowing I was going to write an adventure for it. And I know there's like snake temples have been done a million times. Even in the OSR, you've got Tomb of the Serpent Kings, an amazing, like if you have not checked this adventure out, it is a great introductory adventure to the OSR for both GMs and players. So like it kind of talks to you about like, hey, in this player, they're going to learn that these things can be trapped. And in this room, they're going to learn, oh, wait, yeah, we know this because we learned this already. It's really good at that. But it is a bit more of an intro adventure, and it's not a Pirate Borg adventure. And it has like very classic black and white kind of Dyson logo style maps. So this one started with a map, classic D&D style. You don't have to run it in Pirate Borg, but it's definitely written with Pirate Borg in mind. I kind of was very inspired by old school Essentials in that there's a couple different factions at play in the dungeon who want different things, and you can play them off each other, or you can, have them all go against a player. That's pretty much the gist without getting too spoilery. What am I forgetting? You guys read this one?
You said it, and we've played this one. We've run this as a mega adventure condensed versions.
Oh yeah, we ran it at PAX Unplugged. I ran it for all of our Harbor Master GMs because we were running it as part of our Dwarven Forge mega dungeon.
Yeah. And we've ran it at Origins and Gen Con too. Our GMs have been running it for us, a condensed version of it at the last 2 shows. So it's been really well received. We're super happy with the excitement. And it's, again, a different sort of adventure than what we've had in the past. So it's highlighting a different aspect of the game.
Since the map came first, and the map is excellent, part of the whole Patreon map catalog, this will be a really good one on VTTs, or when you print it out, from the Kickstarter, you have the big map and you cover part of it with, black paper and reveal the rooms as you move. Like, not every location in Pirate Borg needs anything close to that. So it's cool to have that dungeon dive experience of like, what's behind this door? What's behind this? And the VTTs will all have this like plugged into it and be ready to go as well, which is fun.
We say big map, and
it's too big.
It's so big.
It was one of those things where, like, we know that Pirate Borg isn't a grid-based game, but if you have a map that's designed for that and that's to that size, why make it smaller and say, oh, well, the grid doesn't really work, or we don't have a grid on it and you'll just have to reference, when you could go big. So this is, right now, this map is like over 3 feet on its shortest side and like 5 feet-ish on its wide side. It'll take over your entire table. So it's insane.
I mean, we have to prototype it to make sure it can be folded correctly. If the paper is too thick, you won't be able to fold this thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for it because it's just one of those things that I think every D&D player, especially before COVID, every D&D player would be like, how do you deal with maps? Like there was only really Roll20. Am I printing out this like expensive map and covering it? Well, now for like, I think it's like $20 or something, you get this giant map that you can just unfold and throw on your table.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see it. Hopefully we can get the prototype and make it fit in the box because we want it all to be able to fit.
It'll fit. To be clear, because you said it's going to be like $20. That $20 is going to be this map, the map that we haven't talked to you about yet for the third adventure, and the handouts that we just talked about for Lost the Locker. That kind of pack of maps and handouts for Down Among the Dead is all one kit for about $20. It's all going to be one, and it's a very cool thing.
So, Luke, we got the Venom and the Veins on one side of this giant map, but what is the adventure on the other side of that map?
Okay, so this is kind of another history thing for the history of Pirate Borg. The first adventure I ever ran for Pirate Borg when I was beta testing it was, I pretty much made the adventure up for this vampire ship map that I had drawn for Patreon. Now, that map is part of an adventure called Ship of the Damned that I did with Monkey DM, but he kind of went a different direction with the writing than I did when I was making the map, kind of thinking about what would be there. So I ran this thing like on Halloween for a band I was on tour with, Dopapod. And it's the reason that I changed Pirate Borg from being yellow to being like parchment red kind of old vibes, because I had this like yellow PDF and then I'm running on this like old pretty vampire ship map. And I was like, man, this just doesn't, it's not vibing for me. So I redid the whole book for that. But now I've finally gotten down around to actually writing an adventure for this map. It's basically a first-rate ship of the line that's owned by a vampire, if you will. And he has like taken over the whole ship. And so it's basically Castle Ravenloft, like on a boat. That's the like elevator pitch, if you want to know what this adventure is. One of the big stretch goals I have in this campaign, which we actually haven't really slotted in where it's going to be yet, but I want to expand this adventure from just a dungeon crawl to a bit more of like, halfway between I6 Ravenloft and like Curse of Strahd, where you actually have a few locations to visit and a few more NPCs to interact with, maybe a few, like an island, maybe some ruins, a haunted jungle, that kind of thing. But basically, not to get too spoiler, let's just say they're vampires, but they have a deep one origin. I won't go any deeper than that.
That's good. That's good.
Not, one thing I will say that's a little spoilery, but just like, I'm absolutely obsessed with this is that, you know, we even say that in the like marketing tagline, like garlic won't save you from these vampires because they're not allergic to garlic. They're allergic to citrus. So they don't feed, they feed on scurvy pirates because they don't have enough vitamin C in their blood. So I'm so pumped about this idea. Like when people at the table, they're like, I use garlic, and it's like nothing happens. And like you pull out an orange and but you can use your imagination that kind of powers a deep one vampire it might have compared to a more traditional, it's a cool Transylvanian vampire.
The layout of that adventure is really cool too, because like every page, instead of having like the room of the dungeon you're in, it's like a drawing of the ship, and it points out the different things that are in different parts of that level of the ship that you're in, and then has the info on the left. It's like right away you get it. You're like, oh, I get when I'm on this level, these are the things that are here, and this is what's, and there's like red lines pointing it and stuff. It's really clever, cool design for it.
I've worked really hard on the layout. Once again, also inspired by OSE. And then if you go to the back, like the back end papers are that map of the whole ship, and all the major monsters are labeled in red text blocks, so you kind of know what's in each room.
If you want an example of this, if you're listening along and you're like, I can't visualize it, you can go to our Kickstarter page if it's live, or our preview page, and see a spread that shows exactly what we're talking about here. It's not a secret. So, and it's very cool. It's kind of like brought back sludge from the back of Moorpork, right? In that vein too. Kind of.
The big difference though is that rather than it being like a little mini map, it like if you're on the upper gun deck, on each spread that is in the upper gun deck, there's a full map of the upper gun deck, and then bullet points in lines pointing to what part you're talking about. And then above that is a side view of what level with the same labels. So it's really easy for, at least for the GM, to explain where they are on the boat, on the ship. Because that's always really confusing, especially if you're not using a battle map.
No. But if you want a battle map, then you got the giant A0 battle map.
Yeah, I mean, I know battle maps aren't for everybody, but this one is like one of the ones I'm more proud of.
I'm really stoked to run that on a battle map. On that map.
Now, here's the cool thing. I mean, obviously, you're not going to be able to do this for this year unless you print it yourself. But I'm aiming to have, at the very least, or an alpha of it on the Patreon by the end of this month, so that you can run. It's called Into the Maelstrom, and Maelstrom is the name of this vampire ship. So that you could run this for Halloween. It's going to be available like all October. Now, that's not going to have the stretch goal part of turning it into a larger adventure. And I honestly don't know how big that will be. I'm excited to discover that, but it's kind of one of those, I got to make sure people are really going to run it before we make it like a whole big campaign kind of thing. Though, from what I've learned from our harbor master, is it Haldar? Is that how you say his name?
That's how I say it. Yeah.
I just say it because of the Lord of the Rings game. Haldar, dude, he ran like 32 sessions in Buried in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, if I feel like one page for me ends up being like 3 weeks for him. So who knows how long this campaign could be, you know? I am working really hard to make it feel both vampire-y and Halloween, you know, inspired, but also still Caribbean. Everyone always does. It's either like vampires or witches or ghost pirates. And I'm like, well, maybe we can do both. Yeah. You know, maybe it can be like, I like the idea of there being like, you have to go explore haunted ruins, and there's like swamps on islands, and there's like haunted jungles. That's kind of what I'm going for, you know?
Yeah. Luke, a good question people have is, how can they be a playtester, or is there a way to playtest any of these things before it goes to print?
Oh yeah. It's twofold. If you really want to like get in early, the way is the Patreon, because you'll get it as soon as I'm done making it. And I have a channel in the Discord called Brethren Court where we kind of like bounce ideas around on things. That is like the best way for me, because I get feedback the quickest. Though I have found a lot of Patreons, like they're signed up and they aren't maybe like actively waiting for me to make things. So I don't get as much active feedback as the second option would be if you back to Kickstarter. We're going to send a beta PDF out before we go to print. One of the adventures that I have not written yet, when I'm writing that, you guys will have the PDF for Down Among the Dead, so that we can get some feedback on it, you know, make sure they're an extra round of typos smashing, that kind of thing, playtest notes, and those will get worked into the final print. probably aren't going to be like any major changes, like changing locations, but we definitely want to know, like, this monster was way too powerful, although that's not really a thing in Pyroborg. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this wasn't fun, or this could be more fun if there was twice as many of them or whatever.
In the past, I've found things like this wording was confusing. Those are the kind of things we really want to fix before we go to print.
Yeah, so we'd love any of you to join that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the Patreon too is, it's not just Pyroborg stuff. We've been very consumed with that lately, but once this Kickstarter goes, we'll be getting back to more battle maps. And then once I'm done with this, we'll be back to doing Dark Caribbean previews, which is my next book, basically my magnum opus that I've been working on before I started Pyroborg. It's going to be like, that's a whole other episode.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we need to talk about in Down Among the Dead?
I think just reiterating here at the end that 3 adventures are a huge chunk of the book, but there's going to be a bunch of roll tables. We've revealed some of those already, like the Coral Reef Generator, a bunch of like GM resource spreads that are just in general going to be useful. Even if you like creating your own adventures, there's some tools in there for you as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, like the other day, it's a stretch goal to actually put it in the book because I have not laid it out or done any of the art for it yet. But the Jolly Roger Generator, I did my first draft of that the other day, and it is very fun. It basically lets you roll up a random pirate flag, and I worked really hard to make sure that there was a way to roll up all the real flags of history, even though some of them would be very difficult to roll with like subtables and stuff, but it's pretty fun generator.
Yeah. I saw a really cool scale reference yesterday about, hey, you see this ship? Think how big it is. Okay, now you see this tiny little flag on it? Cool. We recovered that real French flag. It's the size of my house. And that is like a normal size flag. And it's like, oh, this ship is massive. Like these flags are 100 feet across.
Yeah, some of them are really big. One of the tables is actually a like twist for the Jolly Roger, like, oh, it's made of human flesh, or like it's a weird shape. And one of them is like too small to tell what it is, and the other is like massively huge,
There's another quick thing about Down Among the Dead, which is, and this will apply to just about everything in the Kickstarter, there are VTT options that are going to be in the Kickstarter for you to pick up if you want. If you're a VTT GM, I know we've talked a lot about physical maps and things like that, but Roll20, Foundry, and Alchemy versions are going to be available in the Kickstarter as well.
Oh yeah, and actually I just confirmed this today that I can spoil it on this episode, is Alchemy is going to be, I'm sure Andy who's listening is going to be into this, Alchemy is going to do a premium version of the Down Among the Dead module. So that means like custom music, 10 animated scenes, and then like a animated version of the cover. That's really exciting, and that's only like, it's exclusive to Alchemy, so it's not our content, it's actually theirs, but it's for this game. So
heck yeah,
super exciting.
Where do you keep all your notes for all this information, Luke? You might keep it in a new GM screen.
Oh, the GM screen. I forgot about the GM screen. Wait, you put your notes in a GM screen?
It's just a segue.
I love this segue.
Yes. Where I need to look up a reaction table. Where might I do that? On the GM screen. But what? Okay, so what is it actually though, Luke?
No. Okay, so here it is. Panel 1, giant letters, pirates don't buy ships. Just kidding. I'm trolling. It would be really funny if it was like ship. I think I kind of want to put that on there, like a little ship prices table, and it just says pirates don't buy ships.
You're wasting valuable real estate of a GM section just to troll everyone.
I don't know, dude.
That's
such a good troll. That's such a good troll.
People want to sell ships more than they want to buy ships.
That's true, but
because they steal them.
But who are they selling them to?
Merchants.
Right. So we're making a 5-panel GM screen. It's 5-panel A5 portrait mode, just like the Morkborg one. If you have the Morkborg one, it's the same format. We are not doing the add-in tabs like that. Those are kind of a production nightmare, and personally I found that they are kind of hard to deal with. So we're just going to make the best screen that we can. Things we know will be on there is the core rules reference, the morale table, the reaction roll table. We're going to have a little diagram similar to the one in the Maelstrom of a ship with all the major parts of a ship labeled, so that a GM can very easily be like, you're on the stern, or you're on the bowsprit. I know those terms now, but it's taken me a long time to learn them. I can't imagine someone who's never played a pirate game before trying to explain that they're on the mizzenmast top. Right. That kind of thing.
Right.
The cool thing is that we're going to be sourcing that to the Discord to figure out what people think about. Like, obviously we're going to be the final arbiters of what makes it, but it's not just going to be like we make it and send it. We're going to try to get as much feedback as we can and get what we really want on there. And there's going to be new stuff. I really like that about the Morkboard one, is that there's content that's not just like, you couldn't just make this, because we're going to put new stuff in it that wouldn't already exist. And then I think my favorite thing about it is that there's a giant ship of the dead, like the ship of the dead is on the middle panel. And one of of our stretch goals is glow in the dark ink for that fucker. So let's go.
Hell
Yeah, the player-facing side is this diorama that you drew specifically for the GM screen.
Yes.
And it kind of has all of the little flavor bits of Pirate Borg on it. It kind of captures the vibes and the whole mood of the game.
A Kraken attacking a ship, head into a ghost island with the temple and an exploding volcano, and Captain Morrow's there. It's awesome.
Yes, yeah. I don't know if we fully spoiled that's his name if you're not playing in the West Marches, but the captain on the cover of Pirate Borg, his name is Captain Morrow. I think it's perfect.
I love it.
So
I love it. He's a big player in our West Marches campaign now. I love it.
we're going to talk about the West Marches campaign. We might as well plug it before the end of this thing. So let's move on to the starter set. So we had kind of thought about doing this, but we were at Gen Con earlier this year and I picked up the Arkham Horror role-playing game starter set. And I was like blown away by the amount of things they put, like not just content, but like there's like a booklet and a GM screen and like dice and all these cool things. And I was like, you know what? This is sweet, but like we could do this. Like, let's do it, you know? And also I recently got the Mothership box set. That's a little bit more of a box set than a starter kit, but like we have the power as people to make a thing like this exist in the world.
We're already doing most of it in different pieces. So it was like, we're not even like asking ourselves to figure out a lot more stuff. It's just like bringing all that stuff together.
Yes, exactly. We decided like at Gen Con, basically, I was like, we got to do a starter set. Let's just do it. And like now where we are within the process where we have like it all kind of mocked up and we know we're starting to put the order in for all the pieces. We are so excited about it. It's honestly like, this is almost like what the Kickstarter is about now. And Down Among the Dead is like for people who already have Pirate Borg, because the starter set is going to be awesome. It's going to have a player's handbook. What do we call it? Player's guidebook.
Player's guidebook.
It's like a zine that's basically Pirate Borg without any of the GM stuff. Kind of like the free PDF that we gave out, but a little bit more tailored. So you can give this to a player and they're not spoiling anything about the setting or the game or any roll tables, but they can make a character and learn how to do naval combat and all that stuff. Then we're writing a new adventure called Trapped in the Tropics, which is basically going to be like a spiritual successor to Buried in the Bahamas. Different location, different, kind of sets of monsters. Obviously there will be traps involved. I think my kind of like elevator pitch for it now is it's going to be kind of like you are prisoners of a galleon full of conquistadors and they have discovered a temple and they're like, kind of funnel style dumping you into the temple to get to the end of it. But it's going to be multiple parts, kind of like the Mothership one where you could run it as a couple different sessions, and it'll be very, just like Buried in the Bahamas, very introductory and designed to teach not just existing 5th edition or other system GMs how to play, but we're really going to have a bit of a focus on like just how to get anybody going. It's not going to be as like a full how to play role-playing game thing, but it's going to really have like running a new thing in mind. That being said, an experienced Pirate Borg GM will find just as much value in it. That was really important to me as a game purchaser, that I don't want this thing to be like, well, I'm not going to get that because I already have that. If you buy the starter kit and you already have the book, you don't have anything duplicated. You have a booklet to give your players and a new adventure. And we've got 3 double-sided maps that are they as big as the Dark Caribbean map or bigger?
Currently, we have 3 maps, one of which is double-sided. And if we hit some stretch goals, we'll add in the other 2 pieces, just as a note.
So 2 maps. Double-sided. We're stretching for a 3rd.
Yep.
But I think hopefully we'll put that low enough that it's attainable.
Yeah, I think so.
And then it's going to have punch-out tokens for naval combat. The back of one of those maps is going to be a water map, and then there's going to be punch-out tokens for every like monster in the adventure. And dice. We're doing resin dice in the starter set.
There's a dice set in there, and then there are reference playing cards for the monsters and ships that are coming in that adventure,
so much
and a tiny character sheet pad too, and laminated player cheat sheets for character creation like you would use at a convention that we have there. So you'll be able to open it, give your players hey, what character you want to make, but here's the sheet that you can just follow this order to make a character, flip it over, you've made your character, here's a character sheet you can transfer it to, here's your tokens, here's your ship on your map that you can fight, you can turn over the maps to be on the other side to have ship-to-ship combat between them and go to the temple.
Yeah, it's going to be like the quintessential starter. I mean, I know that's what Buried in the Bahamas is now, but this will be like Buried in the Bahamas, but with visual like assets, which I think are an important important part to getting people into the hobby. You know, like I've always really wanted those when I first got in. I was like, I want the maps. Now I think once you start playing, you're like, you know what? I don't really, it's actually more fun when I just use my imagination, but we kind of want to provide both experiences.
The one thing I like about the adventure is that you could easily add that into any, like, oh, you tried to attack a Spanish galleon and you failed, or, you got captured. Like, oh, we're switching to Trapped in the Tropics, just like the TPK, like, oh, I accidentally killed you all. Okay, cool. We're going to the locker, like you can drop this adventure into your existing campaign at any time.
Yes, absolutely.
I think the other note is that, because I know we're going to ask, and I think chat's already asking, but all of the booklets in this, so the Trapped in the Tropics and the Player's Guidebook, currently we have no plan on offering them outside of the starter set. So
yes.
these are things that you'll pick up the starter set at a stupid good deal. And I know that sounds like an ad, but it's legitimately, if we were to sell them all separately, it would be much higher. You would pay a lot more. So it's a great deal, but it's all in there. Gotta get it there.
Yeah, it's like when I think about it, I'm like, yes, it'd be cool to be able to buy 6 copies of the player thing for my group. But the reality is this, you can't go to Target or your game store and buy 6 copies of the booklet that comes in the D&D starter set. Like it's part of the starter set.
Yeah.
So
I think it's totally fair.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is that this is going to come with PDFs. So it'll be the same kind of PDF, but our current plan is not to offer it. I think we're trying to get away from quite so many zines and move to like kind of larger format stuff because it's just better for kind of long-term plans for us. So
yeah. You want to talk about the dice that are in there and then the other dice as well?
Okay. Yeah. So there is I don't know if you know about that, Tyler, but there's a development on the dice. We're making 4 sets of hard edge dice. These are basically like passion projects for me. I love dice and I really only want dice sets that have D2s in them. 4D6 is nice for obvious reasons when you're rolling stats for a landlubber. So we're doing a 12-piece set, 4 colorways, one of which is the Jolly Roger black and white. We're doing a red set called No Quarter, a Dark Caribbean set, which is like a really cool blue and black dark sea vibe, like blue-green. They look awesome. And then, of course, Deathlight or Ship of the Dead. I forget which one we're calling them. The glow-in-the-dark dice. Those are going to be amazing.
It's really important to note, I think. You just gave like a quick overview, but when you say black dice or you say red dice, they are not solid color. I'm not a dice goblin, right? So like on my end, wouldn't know all the correct terms, but I would describe all of these as having like a smoky, inky quality to them.
They're going to be like clear resin filled dice. So that like the Jolly Roger ones will look like smoky black on the inside. Yeah, just like you described. The development is that due to costs, with the dice set in the starter set is not going to be hard edge. They are still going to be resin, but I think we're going to spec those as like more of a curved edge because it's like a quarter of the price or maybe less. And they're going to be, I think those are going to be solid black with white ink just to have a little bit of variation.
It was a choice between, I mean, they're still resin, so they're still quality, but it was a choice between either we get rid of the sharp edge. If we keep the sharp edge, we've got to significantly bump the cost of the starter set.
Yeah, by like $5 or $10.
Yeah,
no thanks. We want it inexpensive, not cheap. There's a big difference.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yes.
It's very important that everything that we make be as like highest quality as possible. So these dice are still going to be, they're still oversized. They're bigger than normal dice. Like it's going to be like the best starter set dice you've ever had. They just won't be as good as the ones that you can add on.
People are asking if there will be dice bags.
So there's not a dice bag to start, but we do have a stretch goal for an actual leather stamped dice and D2 bag. And that's going to be, Zach, what tier packages are going to get that?
Yeah. So if we hit it, it'll be at like the top tiers. We'll get it for free. Like the top, like basically the all in or I already have everything from Pirate Board, but I want to buy everything new for Pirate Board tiers. We'll get that for free. And I would also say, I think this is a good time to caveat that literally everything that we're talking about when we're talking about like physical product at this point is still in process of getting finalized. So who knows what it'll all shape out to exactly. But I mean, we have a pretty good idea. But just as a kind of note about like, we talking about sharp edge dice or about how the dice look or yada, yada, yada. Those things could change slightly. The packaging for what the dice come in could change slightly. The page count of the books could change slightly. That's kind of a general disclaimer.
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember that we are a small group of people that are doing all this, and these kinds of decisions consume our every waking thought. So that's why we're talking about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to be able to just be like, oh yeah, we're doing, like, I feel like if you watch D&D, like, and there's commemorative dice, and they would move on, but we're like, we're going to do hard edge and soft edge. Like, it's just because that's what we're working on.
It too. Like, you really care about it.
We do care about it. Yeah. Yeah. We don't make anything we don't care about. So
Do you care about tokens, Luke?
do I care about tokens? Yeah. We're doing a pack of coins that are, they're basically $half size D2/Devil's Luck. So I think what I'm going to do for this design, based off the feedback from the channel and the poll, is we're going to do kind of a like Pirate Borg Dark Caribbean inspired version of a historic piece of 8, the Spanish real kind of coin. But then one of the sides is going to have an etched pentagram into it. They are used for Devil's Luck. You're also going to be easily able to tell whether it's this 1 or 2 side, because it is a D2. That's the point. It's not, obviously you just use a regular coin. But then we also have some stretch goals, right, Zach? Can we talk about those?
Yeah.
So all the VIPs know this, the very important pirates, but if you sign up to, you pledge $1 beforehand, you get this Charon's Opal D2. It's kind of like Greco-Roman inspired, actually I went to a museum in Greece this year that was a Opal museum, and I looked at those coins as I was making this design. So
that's cool.
But our high stretch goals, the ones that are like, you guys have made us achieve pirate god level status. Yeah. One of them is a coin, another D2 for Into the Maelstrom. So it'll be like a vampirate, kind of Romanian coin maybe, or a deep one in coin. I don't know yet. And then the other one is going to be a snake Mazoan temple inspired D2. So all the really high, whatever the high level tiers are going to get those for free.
We've now talked about 4 different coin types, right?
Yeah, lots of coins.
Charon's Opal is a VIP pledge for $1. You get it for free as part of your pledge at that point. The $1 goes towards your shipping costs and backer kit, so you get the Opal for free. The other 2 coins are a big stretch goal. You'll be able to pick up, assuming that those 2 get unlocked, all 3 of those as add-ons, even if you aren't at the tiers that get it for free. You'll be able to grab it. This is not locked out to a specific type of person or tier or VIP. It's just that some people are going to get it for free. And then the 4th type is the Devil's Luck, which are going to be smaller. And there starts as a 10 pack. If we hit a certain goal, we've kind of budgeted to where we hit a certain goal, we can bump that to a 13 pack of smaller, thinner coins that you'll be able to like have in a bag or whatever and rifle through, as opposed to these big chunky medallion type coins of the other 3.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exciting. Okay, cool. Well, I think that's most of the core things.
We haven't talked about naval combat tokens and creature tokens and the water mat.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much all there is to say. We're doing punch out tokens for tokens for ships, punch out tokens for monsters.
It's like 5 sprues. They're double sided, so you get every.
Like I said, I don't want to make this an ad.
No, it's not an ad, though.
Nobody knows this stuff, though.
It's something that, as someone who has worked the booth already several times this year, right? Like, we get a lot of people coming up and saying, what do you use for ships? How can we get ships, right? So the answer to that is, at least our initial answer this year is punchboard tokens of all the ships that you've done, Luke. And on the opposite side of each ship is like the alt version of it. So maybe it's the regular galleon on one side and it's a ghost galleon on the other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them. I think we're doing 5 punch boards, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be like 2 to 4 copies of every ship.
Sea monsters.
Maybe double that if you count their variations. But yeah, so you should be able to run. The idea is that like for cheap, like under $30. What is it, like $20 as an add-on?
I'll tell you, it's $15 for the naval combat pack, and it's another $15 for the like monster token pack. And each one of those is 5 sheets.
We were saying 5 punch boards, but that's like 20 tokens a board or something.
Yeah.
So it's like when you buy like a high-end board game, it's like those thick cardboard punch outs. But the idea is that like for cheap, you can get like, that's like one model. If you're going to go buy a oak and iron ship, it's going to be at least $20.
Yeah.
This way you could get them all to run the whole campaign, especially people who are like, oh, we're going to play this once. I don't know if we're going to play it more. It's nice to be like, oh, I have all the ships that we need for a visual combat. Oh, you know what? We haven't talked about we are doing a neoprene water hex mat, which is kind of like the one that you can get in the shop now, but we're like mass producing them at a manufacturer rather than like a print on demand one, which is what the ones in the shop are right now.
It'll get your price point down a little bit for the consumer.
Yeah.
It's 3 by 3, 3 foot by 3 foot.
Yeah, and my hope is that if like people are into the naval combat tokens, if they're into the water mat and stuff, like I would love to do the Oceans and Islands pack from Patreon, like with whirlpools shoals and coral reefs and islands. So, I guess we're going to kind of let the market decide that, as they say in the business world. But if like people are into that stuff, I would love to like build out a full cardboard world so you could just like throw this thing in your starter set box and have all the tokens you need to run a cool naval combat.
That's worth mentioning. The starter set box is intentionally taller, thicker than the contents inside to allow you to add Buried in Bahamas and Singing Cathagan and all the extra zines and stuff inside of there, or your tokens and your dice, so that it can be like a carrying case, so that like the core book doesn't come in that, but you could either put that in there maybe, or it's on the outside. You carry those two items together, which is really cool.
Not to toot our own horn, but it's definitely cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah.
Basically, we just make all the shit we wish we had. We're like, man, what if we had this? And we're like, wait, we could just make it because other people are going to want it too.
Right now, my pirate board kit is like in a literal treasure chest, but it's just like thrown in there and not organized very well. So I'm excited to have this.
I mean, that sounds like what it should be, though. Yeah. It should just be like a pile of shit that you're like, we reach in this treasure chest.
Speaking of useful books, is there another book in this Kickstarter too, Luke?
Yes. Cabin Fever. Woo. I've got Cabin Fever. Yeah. I mean, we have a whole episode about the Cabin Fever Jam. The winners for that were so much better than we had hoped. Like that we had not expected, but like they just blew our expectations away. That we have talked with all the creators, some of which you might be in this channel, and are going to offset print Cabin Fever book. And it's like 180 pages. It's going to be like just as big as Pirate Board. We're excited about it. It is looking pretty fresh.
So I'm putting this book together, and
you're a contributor, and you have 2 entries in the book, right?
2 entries, yeah. What I would say is, if you haven't listened to the Cabin Fever episode, the content in there is going to, I think, overwhelm you with how much is packed in. Because you got to imagine that, like, I think we had over a dozen, close to 20 contributing teams
in the final.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so, as an example, like, there's like 7 or 9 classes. PC classes.
13 PC classes, 13 plus generators, 6 adventures, 96 NPCs, monsters, and ships, and a solo mode.
Yeah, it's an obscene amount of content. And I think like sometimes you have compendiums like this and it gets very like niche. Like the content in it is like, oh, that's cool, I'll probably never use it, or that's interesting. This is not that. Like what I have read through, and as I've been working through it, I'm like, oh, a lot of these classes are like going to feel right at home in your regular pirate board game. These adventures are great drop-in scenarios. I'm like, there's so much stuff that I feel like is like, for me at least, it will be added to my core pirate board everyday gameplay experience. So I'm really stoked that that's the kind of book that it evolved into being, and that there's just like 180 pages of crazy stuff. This book is huge. It's huge, and also we're kind of following through with our commitment to making this book at a reduced price point because it's community content, and we want to get it to as many people as possible. So
yeah, it's actually a bigger book than Down Among the Dead, and it'll be cheaper. The MSRP is actually $10 cheaper because we are honoring what we said we would do when we launched the jam.
Right now, there's not an intent to do a VTT version of Cabin Fever just because of the amount of stuff that's in it. Never say never, but part of this Kickstarter, it's not going to be a part of it.
I would say, given the nature of the thing, that should probably come from the community.
Yeah.
Even though we're publishing, it'd be really cool to see if other people wanted to, convert that content to Foundry.
If someone, if they want to do the work too, we could host it or, point links to it, let people get it.
One thing I do want to say though, is like there were 20 contributing teams to the book, but those are just the winners. We only picked 3 winners from each category. It was actually like the most participated Morkborg adjacent jam with 137 entries in total, all of which, at least at the time of the jam, were free on itch.io. So like if you're looking for content, just go check out that jam.
All the content's free, and the PDF of this final product is free as well. We're just selling the book.
I forgot to mention
physical book. So there'll be an alpha or beta version available when we launch.
Yeah, when the Kickstarter launches, we'll have something to see for Cabin Fever.
Yeah, we just want to support the community.
Yeah, a lot of it you can already go see. So definitely check that out. Someone in chat said it sounds like a Pirate Board version of Knock. In some ways that's true. Knock is definitely a little bit more curated in that they are picking entries and then they do the layout. Same with like Feretory and Heretic for Morkborg. We did not do the layout for this. I mean, we're laying it out into a book format, but like the layout came from the contributors and we only curated in that we took the top from each category. So in some ways, yes, it's like that, but in other ways, it's a little bit more of like almost like a montage of other people's work. You'll see the visual styles are all over the place in a great way. Like some of them are like, holy crap, they're like really great level of talent and layout. Yeah. Few closing things on the Kickstarter. We do have a retailer tier. So if you are a retailer or you know a retailer, you prefer to buy from a brick and mortar, please tell them to come back this. They can buy everything in the Kickstarter at wholesale, carry Pirate Burger in their store. Hell yeah. Yeah. Also in conjunction with retailers, the week of the Kickstarter, the Kickstarter's kicking off Talk Like a Pirate week. We're not just doing a day. We found a lot of people want to run on the weekend. So basically it's technically Monday to Sunday, but we have people actually going from like Saturday to the next Sunday. Why not? Yeah, if you want to run games, you need to hurry up. But if you want to run games in person and get Harbor Master credit for it, you can sign up on our website. Double credit. Yeah, the week of Talk Like a Pirate Week, you get actually 2 for 1. For every game you run, you get 2 reward levels. Tyler, as our Harbor Master, Quartermaster, is there anything you'd like to include about this program?
Yeah, so the season 1 will end at the conclusion of Talk Like a Pirate Week. So any counting your number of games to get rewards for season 1 ends, but season 2 starts, as we said, the week before Talk Like a Pirate Day. So your games also count for season 1 and season 2. We haven't released the exact rewards for it, but I'll say that it's a lot like last year, but even more. We're just adding more stuff to it, doing new versions of things. There's going to be a new coin at level 12. There may or may not be a pirate flag coming. So we'll announce that officially once we can get some mock-ups and some hard details to you guys. But we're going to try and get that soon so that you know what you're getting your games to. And again, any public games count. You run them online, you run them at your local game store, wherever you like, as long as that anyone can see the posting on our calendar that you've posted to the calendar and then they can show up and play, then that counts.
If you sign up, I mean, like I said, you only have a few days left, but if you sign up to run a game for Talk Like a Pirate Week, Tyler will send you a free PDF. There's an adventure called Anchor Drop Falls, which is inside Down Among the Dead, and it's like a little PDF I put together that has like a generator from the Dark Caribbean, this 1-page dungeon, and like a guidelines on how to run a Talk Like a Pirate Day event.
Very helpful.
Hit up Tyler if you are already signed up as a Harbor Master if not, you need to sign up for a game in order to get that PDF.
Limithron.com/events.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the West Marches campaign?
Yeah. Our West Marches campaign our first campaign is coming to a close here also at the end of Talk Like a Pirate Week. We have had thousands of player hours and we have 16 GMs and play with about 100 different pirate characters have played, but it's been this shared world of people playing every week. And we update like sort of a news release of like what has happened in the last week. And here's some global events based off of what players have chosen to do or who they did or didn't kill and how that's evolved. This shared narrative as we progress through the Dark Caribbean story spanning over a 16-week period. It's been super
it's like
awesome.
The MMORPG.
Yeah.
It's like the MMTT RPG. Nobody's done that, right? Massive multiplayer tabletop role-playing game.
I have been told
let's go.
A couple people have done this before, but never with pirates. So it's really awesome.
But did they call it an MMTT RPG?
MMTT RPG. There you go. Yeah. We have a big mega event coming on Talk Like a Pirate Day on 9/19 that I will be running myself with the help of our Harbor Masters through that for the campaign. And anybody's welcome to join, including people who have never played Pirate Borg before. It's going to be this massive congregation of opposing sides and factions in the campaign of players making different choices on how the world is going to end.
Dude, I'll be honest. I ran the beginning of this year, I ran my own full Dark Caribbean campaign with a full calendar. And the last week, the last row of the calendar was by far the most fun of the campaign. And I did some things that I had to come up with at the table that were 100% going into Dark Caribbean. Things like, I don't really want to give spoilers, but 2 major undead NPCs controlling hundreds of thousands of their respective kinds of undead enemies fighting against each other with the players influencing it and the players rolling for damage for these massive NPCs. Amazing. I'm 100% awesome. Putting in these final final battles of the Dark Caribbean into the Dark Caribbean book. Yeah. So that's going to be really, really exciting.
I'm very excited. It's gone great. The GMs are incredible. They've run so much more than I expected and been so helpful. So thank you so much, you guys.
I can't wait for the debrief, because we're going to do a debrief where I let them all tell me what they think should be in the book, and like what they liked and what they didn't like, and it's going to be great. It's just going to be like the coolest RPG book I've ever made, obviously. But I can't wait to see.
It's been a pleasure curating it, and we're going to do another one, and we'll talk about if it's the same format or if we do something shorter or longer and stuff. And so, if you want to do another one, keep your eyes out, and probably a 2-month break or something like that. We'll start a whole nother season.
One last thing: if you want to pick up other previous Pirate Borg stuff as part of the Kickstarter, literally everything that we have made for Pirate Borg so far will be available in the Kickstarter, and there's different bundles and things like that. But if you want to pick up Dark Tides or some other product that's kind of escaped you so far, all of that will be available both in reward tiers and as add-ons on the Kickstarter, and post Kickstarter in the backer kit. You can manage that too. So it'll be a whole smorgasbord of like stupid amount of items that you'll be able to pick up at the Kickstarter.
You can pick whatever bundle you want and then add on literally anything you want that we make.
All right, we're going to do a different broadside barrage this time. Instead of me asking my guests a bunch of questions, we're going to have chat ask us any questions that they want. I'm going to have Tyler, you read them off in your best announcer voice. Here comes the intro.
Hold fast, wretched sailor. We brace for the broadside barrage.
All right, chat. Sorry, people who are listening to pre-recorded, you can't travel back in time and be here, but we're on Discord Live with about 21 audience members. If you have any questions for the team, myself included, now is the time.
Will there be a third printing errata sticker for those of us who own first or second editions?
No. Third printing, which already exists, is minor typographical changes, and we sold out a second printing. It is not anything major like the things that we reprinted from first to second. Editions is not the right word. Printings, I would say. I mean, I know that they used to use the word editions to mean different printings, but we're talking about the difference between second printing and third. You'd be hard pressed to find them, but it's a lot of like, this thing wasn't bold and it should be. There are very few minor things that actually affect gameplay. So the first printing, though, if you have a first printing and you have a first printing because A, it says it, and B, it has bookmark ribbons. There were some cultural sensitivity changes that we made and a few kind of wrong die sizes and you can get a sticker from us. If you need one and don't have one, email support@limithron.com.
Got a good tip for handling the player NPC crew, fighting enemy NPC crew in the background.
My suggestion is to not. By that, I mean, you just do it narratively. Like, I understand where this problem comes from. Like, if I've got a small ship and I take on a huge ship, is there a mechanic for it? The way I play a Pirate Borg, there's not. Now, what you can do is you could treat it like Risk, and you could say, hey, you've got 20 guys, so you'll get 2d6, and they have 40 guys, so they'll get 4d6, and you could play Risk style to wipe out crew. You could also do kind of more like Sid Meier's Pirates, where the outcome of the characters battle determines the outcome of the ship battle. But you have to be careful that you don't let a tiny sloop take over a ship of the line just because they were better at sword fighting. Yeah, so I guess that's my overall example. Tyler, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, the way that I've done it in the past is I say the fights in the background, it's entirely dependent on how well you guys do if you win, but people want to know how many of our crew died. So I'll roll a dice on one side or the other based off of the maximum and minimum amount of people that I think could be injured or hurt, and be like, hey, you have a large crew, but there's a huge fight. 2d6 people die and 2d6 people are injured. And I'll just roll those numbers and then write them down, and they'll affect that on their crew size, which now you're below minimum crew numbers. So you're sailing with only one action and stuff like that. That's like an easy way to not have to play a war game for a long time. That's how we do it.
You don't want it to turn into a war game, but my suggestion is this: learn to develop that GM skill of okay, what needs to happen right now? Okay, I need them to roll against them, and they should be favored by a lot or not a lot, and then determine the amount of risk. Like I said, if you take a raft against a galleon, you don't need to roll for that. They get slaughtered. you know. But if you take like a sloop against a brigantine and you didn't know how many guys died, maybe just, okay, well, I think that my guys would get the PC should get a +2 on a D20, or like, let's roll a D12 against a D10. Just learn to develop that ability to call for some kind of roll at the table if you want dice rolls to be involved. My suggestion would be keep the story on your players, maybe do a skill challenge with if they really want to be rolling dice. But I really try to keep dice rolls exciting in my game and not mundane bookkeeping kind of things.
What is everyone's go-to pirate board class, assuming they are a player?
I have not played a lot of Pirate Borg. I mean, I've run a ton of Pirate Borg. Sorcerer probably would be my go-to. I'll tell you what though, man, I feel like you haven't really played Pirate Borg until you've played as a rat or a chicken. Like that's got to be. At GaryCon last year, I did a pickup game where we just made up an adventure, and it was basically like Mouse Ritter meets Pirate Borg. I called it Pirate Borg, and they were all rats at the bottom of a ship trying to escape, and it ended with Haas wearing armor he made from cheese. So
nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Definitely try that.
Zach, what about you?
I would say, I think my go-to is the Zealot, but I also do have a soft spot in my heart for the Swashbuckler.
Swashbuckler is my answer. Yeah.
I would note that there's a stealth extra or like backup character in every Pirate Board game, which is, you know, in Morpwork you have the small but vicious dog, and that sort of idea. Like any pets that you have are my go-to backup characters for when the players die. So even if you don't make a rat character, it's a great opportunity to be like, all right, you died. You're going to play his pet cat now for the rest of the session.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you planning to go to Genghis Khan coming up in February?
Yes, I think it's just going to be me of the three of us, though some of my more local Pirate Borg type crew will be there. We're also doing a Ship of the Dead meetup in the lobby again on Saturday night. We'll be running games. I usually end up running whatever I'm playtesting for Pirate Borg. But yeah, we will definitely be at Genghis Khan.
We'll also be at Gamehole Con, then PAX Unplugged, and GaryCon after that, and then Origins and Gen Con. Then we're back around to the year cycle.
Yeah.
If you'd like to run Pirate Borg at any conventions, hit us up at tyler@limitthron.com. I'd love to have you.
Since we had a question about this, I think it's probably, and I know that there's some people in chat who care and are going to be there. We're somewhat shuttering like Buried in the Bahamas and some of the adventures that we ran a lot. And we're going to be previewing a lot of the new adventures from Down Among the Dead and whatnot. So as you dive into Gamehole Con and GaryCon, especially 2025, we're kind of doing a full refresh. So I know there's people in this chat and probably listening who have played with us at conventions multiple times, who have played Buried in the Bahamas 4 times, right? Full refresh across the board in 2025.
Well, yeah, and there's going to be so many options too, you know, especially since after this thing is shipped from my end, from creative, we'll be full-time Dark Caribbean. There's just like, and between that and Cabin Fever, like I think we're definitely going to have opportunities to play Trapped in the Tropics. I love the idea of just like every GM has a copy of Down Among the Dead with them. So when they kill everybody, instead of giving them new characters, they just play Lost in the Locker. That's just like the backup. We're like, oh, we're fucking back to the locker again, you know?
I have 3 questions for the Broadside Barrage for the crew, and they're all going to be fast. What's your favorite new item in the Kickstarter?
What's yours, Tyler?
The starter set, I think is really cool.
I am in love with the limited hardcover. We're going to show that off in the next day or so to everybody. But that cover that Luke is laughing about because he is like, I don't know, this is my placeholder. It'd probably be different. We're like, shut up.
I made a placeholder. I made a placeholder version, and both of them were like shit their pants when I showed them. They're like, oh my God, this is the one that I want.
Yeah.
Luke, favorite thing in the Kickstarter?
I mean, I'm really proud of the book. I'm really proud of, I know this is not a short answer, but I'm really proud of Lost to the Locker, which is done. I'm really proud of all 3 adventures. I'm really proud of Into the Maelstrom as it is, but I'm also really excited to see, I haven't done all the art for Venom in the Veins, and I have some sketches for that I just need to ink up of like there's like a, you know, spoiler. There's a ghost of a snake necromancer. I'm really excited to draw that. So honestly, like I feel so fortunate. I just think of the coolest shit I can think of, and then people want it. And I'm like the luckiest person on the planet. So I'm just excited to be here.
Zach, add an entry to what's in the Ship of the Dead cargo hold D100 table.
Oh my gosh. I think it's going to be, in lieu of this episode, it has to be a small pouch with D6 Charon's opals nestled inside.
That's great. That's a great answer.
Good answer.
I can't wait till we actually get to 100 entries and can publish that table.
I know that. Yeah.
It's going to happen. This is episode 20 and sometimes there's multiple guests. So
what's your favorite die set from the Kickstarter? What would be your choice?
Dark Caribbean.
Glow in the dark.
I don't know.
Luke loves everything he's making, so he can't pick anything.
My favorite dice set it's the Ship of the Dead. Glow in the dark is like my favorite. I know it's not really a color, but it is a color. Glow in the dark, man, all the way.
You've been listening to the Ship of the Dead podcast. Email your questions, comments, and buried treasure tips to shipofthedead@limithron.com. You can support the program, join our Discord server, get early access to new episodes, and instantly download hundreds of battle maps, assets, and adventures at limithron.com/Patreon. Tiers start as low as $2 a release, and you only get charged when I make something new. Pirateborg, my rules-light, rum-infested hack of Morkborg, is available now at pirateborg.com and retail stores everywhere. Ship of the Dead is produced by Limithron LLC. Our audio editor is Matt Kepler, and our music is by Alexander Miller. For more, head to limithron.com.